Hi friends, Dr.M.V.Rao here. In this video, which is more of an explanatory type, I wish to discuss various types of agriculture. Normally, we encounter many a time a question, can I go organic? Can I go for sustainability? Is sustainability and organic the same? If I don't spray a pesticide, does it become an organic agriculture? Likewise, so many questions come into existence, and it is necessary that we should have a clear-cut understanding as far as different types of agriculture are concerned. As always I say, this is something like sharing of experiences and not meant for any examination. And as far as certain experiences, whatever we have encountered in the field, the experiences may be different in different fields because of various factors. If it is a laboratory, as always I say, there is something like standardization of equipment, of the test method, and all aspects, and that becomes very much reproducible. But in agriculture and in the field work, so many conditions come into existence, like climatic conditions, the human errors or handlings. So many factors come into existence and they vary from place to place. And one has to adjust by himself and try to strike a balance between what is the theory and what is the most applicable way of organizing things in a particular field. Therefore, let us try to jump into various types of agriculture. Fortunately, there are excellent textbooks and excellent research works and publications, thanks to many scientists working in research laboratories, in the universities, in the industry, in the field, everywhere. And people with the dedication really paved way for development of different aspects in agriculture. So therefore, grossly, this will be a kind of my experience which I am sharing with you. Hopefully, it helps somewhere. And now, there are different types of agriculture. One is a conventional agriculture. A conventional agriculture or a conventional farming is supposed to be an industrial agriculture wherein the production is more important, and therefore it involves usage of synthetic chemical fertilizers, weedicides, herbicides, and pesticides, and all chemicals that can be used for the growth of the plants and give a maximum yield. This is a conventional agriculture. Let us forget the nomenclature right now. I'd say this is being practiced at different places. Let me tell you, therefore, the conventional agriculture was from a very, very long time. So in the good old days, There were not many pesticides that were available or invented by the time, and mostly it is the BHC, it is the DDT, and it is the Endrin, and a few other chemicals that people were using for control of this pest. And there was no limit for that. Gradually, with the time to come, the insects population and the identification of the insects and the damages, whatever they are causing, has been recognized. And today, I believe there are perhaps more than 500 varieties of pesticides, chemical pesticides that are available. There are 500 pesticides and above, but all are not used for all types of farming, and all are not used for all types of produce, and all are not used in all the places. Whatever it is, selectively I'd say that maybe some 20, 30 pesticides are used for a particular type of farming. Say for example in Chile, we have seen that around 36 different types of pesticides were being used at one time. Well, what happens? How does it matter when you use a chemical pesticide? Yes, when you use it very properly, according to the scientific method, probably the residue that is remaining in the product will be quite less. However, it is practically not possible to uniformly spray any pesticide, because when you spray, obviously the plants nearer will be getting more of this, and the plants behind will be getting less of this. So a uniformity is very difficult to attain. And what happens? After all, we see that whenever the pesticide is used, in one of my videos I have shown how a chemical pesticide can instantaneously kill an insect. The pesticide acts on the nerve of the insect and it becomes toxic, and the insect immediately is succumbed. And imagine we are also having nerves, and we have got the nervous transmission. And gradually, with time to come, if we keep on inhaling the pesticide, at a point of time, it will be causing damage to certain of our organs, because we are having many, many more cells compared to an insect. An insect is having a few cells and immediately it will be succumbed. But in our case, human beings, if we keep on inhaling the pesticide residues, they will be toxic to the liver or the brain or any other system. Rather, we'll have to think of something like an acute toxicity that is immediately effective, and a chronic toxicity that comes as a cumulative effect. Say day by day, we keep on inhaling or consuming parts per million parts of the pesticide. Ultimately, it will be causing some damage to a system like liver. This is a cumulative, and that comes in the later part, that is the chronic toxicity gradually. And what happens when the chemical pesticides are taken inside with the food as a contamination? What kind of effects they are going to have as teratogenic effects? That means if a pregnant woman consumes this in small quantities too, what happens to the baby? So these are all the risks that are involved in the chemical pesticides. Not all, some of them, or many of them maybe. So when these are toxic, people have started thinking, let us try to control the amount of pesticide. So I am coming to the first form of it, the traditional farming. The second aspect is integrated pest management, IPM. The third aspect is the non-pesticide management. The fourth aspect is organic farming. And the fifth aspect is sustainable farming. So these are the 5 different types of farming I'm going to discuss about. What is a traditional farming? As I already told you, there is no control over the spray of the pesticide or the usage of the chemical fertilizers or several types of nutrients, and ultimately it is an industrial farming. What happens is we want the yield and we want the produce. This is so in this whole phenomenon, there may be some excess of these chemicals that are used, and having known that some of them are very toxic, so there needed a control measure, that is by integrated pest management. So we go into integrated pest management now, having understood about the conventional farming. In the integrated pest management, for all the pesticides that are being used, there are limits set by international authorities. How are the limits set? They should not exceed 0.05, zero point 0.01 parts per million parts or 5 parts per million parts. Likewise, for independent type of pesticides, so different, the limits are set. So what happens? Really speaking, the pesticide label clearly, if it is studied, it specifically mentions, for a particular acre, you should use so much quantity. You must dilute it accordingly. And it is expected when you spray like that, uniformly, what happens is all these pesticides, whatever we are using, should be falling within the limits. And what are these limits? These limits are set based on their toxicity levels, whatever it is, the cumulative toxicity or chronic toxicity, and taking everything into account. So within the limits, if pesticides are there, well, they are acceptable. This is known as integrated pest management. So, unlike the conventional farming, the integrated pesticide management uses the pesticides, only pesticides which are permissible. Not all pesticides are permitted. Some are banned. Banned is banned. They should never be thought of. And those permitted pesticides, according to the international authorities and the limits set by them, if they are used and when tested, if they are showing within the limits, this is acceptable. This is integrated pest management. Here I am not speaking of the fertilizers. The fertilizers, the chemical fertilizers also have some limitations, and according to the limits only they should be used. More stress is given on the pesticides because of the toxicity levels. And secondly, when the pesticide is sprayed and later on it may remain in the soil for years, several years also. And because of this light, the air and all that, oxidation and all that may be taking place, and some of the pesticides will get transformed into something else, some other chemical, which may be even more toxic also. That is why the limits are very much strict in integrated pest management. Many people have a question: how do I know whether the product, say for example a fruit, a vegetable or whatever it is free from pesticides, or it is integrated pesticide managed, or it is a non-pesticide managed, or it is organic? We cannot say anything about this because, as far as I know, till date, there are no spot tests or immediate tests which have been developed to understand whether a pesticide is present in a product or not. It has to undergo the complete analysis using various instruments, and it is all time taking, but still we have to monitor that apart from the practices that are being followed in the field. So here I would like to mention one more aspect. The power sprayers, supposing I am having a field which is managed well with integrated pest management, but yet the neighboring fields that may not be having this IPM practice and it was going by this conventional farming, they may spray with a power sprayer and droplets of it may fall into my product here, which is organic IPM based, and the traces of it appear in my product, and my product definitely fails according to the international standards. That is why in integrated pest management there is something like management techniques. There are management techniques. What are these management techniques? These are to avoid the insects coming into the field. So, first of all, instead of my spraying and killing the insects, if I avoid the insects, 50% of the job is done. This can be managed by way of barrier crops, by way of trap crops, by way of pheromone traps, and likewise, there are other techniques, and this avoiding of the insect is much more easier rather than killing them. Because if some of the insects are avoided, the rest of the population in the integrated pesticide management has to be controlled by way of permissible limits of permitted pesticides, and ultimately the product should be passing with respect to the international limits that are laid down. This is integrated pest management. Now, the third one is the non-pesticide management. Non-pesticide management involves totally organic extracts being used for the control of pests and the insects, for the control of these weeds also. The organic extracts may be used instead of chemical pesticides. Non-pesticide management, however, does not define anything about the fertilizers. They should be used within limit only, but still they can be used, chemical fertilizers. The pests should be controlled only by way of decoctions, the plant extracts. As I have told, the concept is that if the pesticide is sprayed and is falling in the field, it may be there in the field for the soil for several days. And secondly, it may go into the water, it may be contaminating that. And because of the oxidation, some of it may be getting transformed into more dangerous chemical. That's why here in non-pesticide management or no pesticide management, no pesticide is used. Only plant extracts or fermented products are used. How this is obtained? Say for example, neem contains azadirachtin and neem is extracted with water, and the water extract, it's boiled, it's cooled, and that water extract is used which contains some azadirachtin and it is sprayed. So naturally the product is water soluble and will be washed away. Secondly, this is all biodegradable. So this is an extracted form of it. Then what else is used? There are some organic, what you call pest control agents that are made with different leaves, the fruits, or the seeds, or the plant parts, and they are fermented type. It is not extracted. So some cow dung is placed in that, cow's urine is placed in that, and they are allowed to ferment for days together so that friendly microorganisms will develop. And what happens when you spray this? They repel the insects and they slow down the insects. In one of my videos, how the insect is slowed down by using an organic extract is shown. So when the insect is slowed down, naturally its reproductive ability is reduced and the progeny will be less and the population will be controlled. So this non-pesticide management involves either extracts or the fermented products which will rather slow down the insects, and some of them are lethal to the insects also. But slowing down is the main purpose of using this. And not all types of leaves should be used. We should understand here also, just like permitted pesticides, chemical pesticides, only some leaves, some fruits can be used, but not everything, because there will be some toxic plants as well. And ultimately, they should not become toxic to the human being. So every leaf or every fruit should not be used. There is some literature showing what is to be used, what is not to be used, and there are some traditional practices also, coming from various generations that will suggest use of certain plants and certain type of fruits, etc. So here, somewhere in the NPM, the non-pesticide management also tells us to use as much as possible natural nutrients. So what are these natural nutrients? Like if, say for example, people take this and there's some fish meal like that, which is not toxic to the human beings, but yet that slows down the insects, and at the same time it gives a lot of nutrition for the plant to grow. This is the objective. These are all biodegradable and most of them are water soluble and they will not be posing any big problem. So I have discussed in detail about non-pesticide management too. Now comes the organic way. What is organic farming? Organic farming does not allow any type of chemical to be used in the field. I was discussing about a fertilizer. In organic farming, no fertilizer, chemical fertilizer should be used. Rather, we have to use the composts and manures like earthworm manure. Such type of organic materials which is arising out of plants, and also this cow dung and the neem seed, etc., should be used for this nitrogen purpose. And we should grow nitrogen fixing what you call plants, some legumes parallelly in the field, so that gives strength to the main crop. So it's very interesting and very difficult also, but still it is all achievable. We have seen it to go in an organic way. That means without any chemicals, as far as fertilizers are concerned, or as far as the pesticides are concerned, or as far as the weedicides are concerned. Weeds are removed by hand. Fertilizers are all, as I have told, the compost and the manures, which are organic. And as in non-pesticide management, there are no chemical pesticides that will be used. It is almost the same as non-pesticide managed crop without the use of any chemical pesticides. Now, many people ask, can I jump into straight away an organic farming? No, we cannot. It takes minimum of 3 years for the soil to be cleaned up and to be gotten rid of from the pesticide sprays which have been done earlier. So that is why in the organic farming, no chemicals should be used in the first year, in the second year, in the third year also. And in the third year, most likely, the soil will be totally free from any chemical. It's not only a pesticide, any chemical, and we can go into organic. And there are so many certification authorities which can give a lot of guidance on this organic farming. As I've told you, this is a sharing of experience and grossly I'm speaking, but if one has to go into details, go through the literature, go through the experts' advice, and go through what all the certification authorities speak, and that will be a wonderful guidance to organize our crop. So, in the organic farming, ultimately, the product has to be tested, whether it is in the organic farming or whether in the non-pesticide managed or integrated pest management. The soil has to be tested. I suggest always the plant also has to be tested as such. Then the third thing is the product has to be tested as such. The test for this pest, it is not to testing means it is not general test like ash and acid insoluble ash, but specifically we focus upon the pesticides. So we know there are what type of pesticides are being sprayed, and for all the pesticides, the test should be done. There are methods to do this using the gas chromatography and the HPLC methods. So that's how the organochlorine pesticides, the organophosphorus pesticides, organonitrogen pesticides, carbamates, and all others have to be tested, and these pesticides should be nil. It is not like integrated pest management where you can spray the pesticide. There is no way. It is like non-pesticide management. Nothing should be sprayed. Chemical should be sprayed. Nothing of chemical pesticide should be sprayed. No chemical fertilizer should be used. No external chemical nutrient should be used. Everything should be organic. This is organic farming, and as I mentioned, I'm repeating again, the organic farming takes 3 years of concentrated effort. And in the third year, one can go in for the organic certification after getting the soil and everything properly tested. Then comes the sustainability. So many people ask me, and even I had it out in the very beginning, is sustainable farming the same as organic farming? No. Sustainable farming is the one where the farming is useful for the future generations. It's not just the present, but speaks of the future, and it speaks of the health, and it speaks of wealth, and it speaks of so many other factors, the social aspects and other aspects. So organic farming is only a part of sustainable agriculture program. So if you do an organic farming, it is only a part of the entire exercise. That means, what are the rest? In one of my videos, I have shown there are about 10 different elements that are defined in this sustainable exercise. I'm speaking of sustainable exercise. So there are 10 different elements I have spoken of, like water, energy, and soil, then the social elements, and the supply chain. Likewise, you can see one of the videos in my channel. Then that means this is defining not one farming and not one pesticide or not one fertilizer, but as an in totality, everything should be taken into consideration, like who are the vendors to the grower and the grower. Next comes the, transportation people, then the godown people, then the people who test, their products, then the, what do you call, distributors, and the marketing channel, and ultimately consumer. Everyone is a partner in sustainable exercise. So a field, a pesticide, and a fertilizer is only a part of the entire exercise. In sustainable exercise, the critical and the most important aspect is the training. And sustainable exercise also involves, in one of its elements, the social aspects. So it is not only thinking of ourselves, we should be happy, and the person in the supply chain should be happy. Every person is a partner, and everyone should be happy. The buyer should be happy, and ultimately it should be bringing a healthy livelihood, and also good prospects with respect to wealth also. So sustainable farming is ultimate. When you start practicing with integrated pest management, then gradually come into non-pesticide management, then come into organic farming, then ultimately the whole thing exercise will become a sustainable farming. The objective of sustainable farming is, it is just not only the usage of these pesticides or anything like that, but also give more of what you call yields, better profits, and biodiversity. This is one of the key factors, biodiversity. So, when it comes to sustainability, it is the environment that is taken into consideration, and all our efforts should be to improve the ecology and the environment, giving health and wealth to everybody. So I think I've made it clear on all the four different aspects, and one can go into organic farming following a non-pesticide management in the very beginning, gradually get into the organic farming without use of any chemicals. It needs a lot of monitoring. A sustainable practice needs a lot of monitoring at many places, and it comes through only an organic way of farming in the field. So friends, this has been a long lecture type. However, I have done the farming of chili very successfully. The product could be made non-pesticide managed and it's become organic too. And it's not impossible, but a lot of monitoring is needed. It's a hard work. Of course, once we do it, we'll not go back into what we call the conventional farming at all. So it's all the matter of choice and also matter of interest that comes into existence in farming. So thank you very much.